you're kind of, I don't know how long you've been around, but I just started seeing your stuff a couple months ago. You're kind of like the new kid on the block.
Yeah.
Dude, your stuff is legit like fire, man. It's like
Thank you.
good stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you put a lot of time into it or it just comes naturally, but it's like solid. Like
Well,
for
I used to. I tried to do a completely different thing that was like faceless because kind of like Dinks does where he has the little puppet. I tried to just not have my face out there because like that's why like my books are under pseudonyms. I don't want any kind of fame. I don't like that. But eventually there was a video I saw of Jordan Peterson on the Sean Ryan show, and he said something just disgusting about Christianity that he thought was positive. So I just made a video explaining why that was wrong while I was driving. And then it kind of just went from there.
yeah. Was it one of those things you woke up the next day and it has like 20,000 view type things?
No, that one got censored really hard, but then I just kind of thought like, yeah, I'm driving anyways. But like, yeah, that one it showed too much at a time. Instead of like a 5 seconds of the video, it was like 6 seconds because I wanted Jordan Peterson to be completely within context. So
Um,
then TikTok was like, oh, you're stealing content. So it's
yeah.
just like, no, but okay. So then I started doing it just while I was driving because I have a 10-minute drive to and from work every day. So I was just like, that's a 10-minute window to just talk. And then they started banning those videos because it was while I was driving. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to get to work 10 minutes early and just sit in the parking lot, film a video, and then edit it on my lunch break.
That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
interesting because all my stuff, my early stuff was all driving, and I guess they did like they didn't ban it, or maybe they were because I would get only get like 300-400 views a pop and like zero comments and two likes
Mm-hmm.
for like a year. Maybe it was because all my videos are driving. I never even thought about that.
Which I mean, some of them had that where it literally pulls up a little thing like the testimony video that I have pinned on my channel. It has a little thing in the bottom that says like this is dangerous, don't do this type of thing.
Yeah,
But I mean, every time I was doing it, the phone's mounted. It's like I'm talking to a passenger. I have a microphone mounted above me, and my hands never touch either of it.
yeah,
Um, but regardless, it's just kind of like that little.
yeah. So you're Catholic, right? So
No.
no, like so you know, Taco Talks is a Catholic channel, and I'm just trying to be funny. He's like almost as anti-Catholic as I am. Like all his
It might
content
be more
destroying
anti-Catholic.
Catholicism. So good.
But no, so I'm an injury massage therapist and my business partner is a chiropractor and she is relentlessly Catholic.
Oh wow.
So like I used to be an atheist, became a Christian, that whole thing. But whenever I started kind of like digging into different religions and trying to prove them wrong, I proved Catholicism wrong just immediately because it disproved or it contradicted the Bible.
Right.
So then whenever I started working with her, I started to like hear her say some things that were like, oh, that sounds kind of Christian. And then she'd say something else, and I'd be like, that is so the
Like
exact opposite of what
pagan,
Jesus taught.
demonic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started trying to just really dive deep into it. So like the Catholic Catechism, researching different popes, the history of it. I've just done a massive deep dive in order to try to reach her. And that,
Wow.
yeah, it just never it hasn't worked so far. Like I'm filming this from my, or not filming this, but I'm doing this from my office right now. So she walked in, she heard me saying this stuff. She upset.
Well, you know
But
what's
I mean,
crazy? I wrote The War Within. It started off as a text message to my friend Vince, and it got too long for a text message, so it became an email, and then it turned into a book. And it really the way I nailed the target audience is it was just one person. It was my friend who I love dearly, who had been an atheist for 15 years, and I knew him intimately, but I didn't, just wouldn't hear it. And I just was trying everything I could. And it was really that love for one person that made it such a powerful book. And then that turned into like the channel and the whole thing. And it kind of started off the same way, like your love for her, and you're like you're warring in the spirit for her soul. Not to say that you're the one saving her or get the credit, but just
absolutely
the
not me.
love you're pouring out for one person, that turns into a serious conviction because you're like, I'm not going to let this person perish. If they go to hell, it'll be like with me kicking and dragging and screaming them
Mm-hmm.
back the other way. They're gonna have to like kill me to get it and lock the gates from the inside if they're going to hell, you know? And so that love translates into really powerful content. And it makes sense that's where your conviction's coming from, is just a heart for one person that you care dearly about.
Which with the Catholicism part, that's what started my obsession with proving that wrong. But I mean, just in general, it's like everything needs to be directed towards a person. So like one of the verses I have tattooed on the arm, which the tattoo in general is because of that. In 1 Corinthians 9, Paul says he's going to be all things to all people. So he'll be a Jew to the Jew, a Gentile to the Greeks. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I want to be able to understand everything that they're saying to try to actually like hit it from their side. So
Yeah.
like atheists, I have a heart and a hate for atheists that is like this consistent, like I know exactly why they're like, there's no God, because I've been there. But at the same time, it's just like, dude, just wake it.
Yeah.
How can you deny this kind of thing? But it is literally what you said. So my the background on my phone is literally a quote from Charles Spurgeon, and it says, "If sinners be damned, at least let them leap to hell over our dead bodies.
Wow,
And
you
if they
got it.
perish, let them perish with our arms wrapped about their knees, imploring them to stay. And if hell must be filled, let it be filled with the teeth of our exertions, and let no one go unwarned or unprayed for."
Oh, it's so beautiful. I can't believe you have that as your background. I
I need
butchered
to
it.
see it every time.
Yeah, I butchered it, but that's what yeah, 100%. And that's really the heart. That makes so much sense why your content is hitting so hard, is because it's coming from this place of like, like it, far be it from me that they perish. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna do everything I can.
Mhm.
And it
Which
comes
again,
from,
I'm Calvinist, so I think that God chooses who he saves,
yeah.
but the power of the gospel is literally to save people, and God uses us to preach it. So it's like if God can use me for anything, I want it to be that.
We should do a whole thing on Calvinism. Um,
I'm down.
the thing is though, so most of the street preachers I know are Calvinists, which is ironic because, they get accused all the time of like, well, you just all think we're robots and there's no free will. And so they're like, no, there's free will. It's just to such a limited extent.
Mhm.
Like,
Which it's not even that. It's like that's hyper Calvinism, which is usually the straw man that's brought about against it.
right,
But it's not that we don't have a free will, it's that our will is bound. So we are either bound to sin or bound to Christ. We're literally slaves. So we freely have a will to decide anything within sin or within God. But
yeah,
it's kind of that concept of like, and this is literally where I was, where I hated God desperately. And I would never have chosen God unless he pushed me to do it.
right. And if you did, then it would be your glory for choosing him. We should go deep because I got a lot to say on this. And I think it's not untrue, but I think there's a lot of nuance. Like, for instance, I think a lot of times people will mistake the physical for the spiritual. We see that all the time in scripture, like, oh, he's talking about bread. No, I'm talking about like yeast puffs up a loaf of bread, their doctrine puffs up their hearts because it's
Yeah.
right. And so like he's talking the failure of to rightly divide the physical from the spiritual. I think another thing is misunderstanding seasons, that people think there's a single orthodox truth, which there is in Jesus. But like it's possible to also be slave for a season to sin and then transformed into a slave to Jesus, not just one or the other, but
Exactly.
one in a season and it translates into a next. And so I think there's nuance. And so we should do a whole thing on Calvinism.
I'm
Um,
down.
that'd be
Well,
great.
that's like it's like when Jesus says, the Father is the vine dresser. You know, one thing that a lot of Christians expect, and I won't get into the debate about this, but Kat Von D, when she first came to Christ, she threw away all of her books and all this other stuff. And, I'm not going to make a judgment on whether she is or isn't. But what I noticed about Christians was like the first day she became a Christian, everyone was like, we can't see the fruit. She's still doing this and still doing that. And it's like half these people are watching porn, man.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
where's your fruit? You know what I mean? Like they expect that, they plant a seed day one and then they expect fruit day two.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work like that. Where a lot of Christians don't patiently endure with somebody through the walk, God patiently endures with them. And if somebody is pruned for a time, guess what? There's no fruit on the branch for a time. There may be a time where they're just not going to be, such a godly person that you expect them to be. But that's part of the process, is that when you get pruned, you come back bearing more. Then you get pruned again and you come back bearing much. You see, so we go through these seasons of, there's going to be times where it's like I'll give an example. There was a time like when I was homeless, I cannot describe the amount of foul, disgusting words that I called God in that time
Yeah, me
when
too.
I'm screaming out and all that sort of stuff. But then, look what happened out of that. You know what I mean? Like all the times where I had this really intimate experience with God, where he just took everything and he said, you know what, I still love you and I'm going to elevate you.
Mm.
You don't know what's going to be around the corner. And sometimes it's like, just a lot of people don't understand those analogies that Jesus uses, like the wheat and the tares, the harvest, the threshing, the grapevine, the pruning. They don't look into like why is Jesus using these particular things? Like what's the relation between them as far as the scripture and my walk with Christ and the analogy that he uses or the metaphor or whatever whatever people want to use. So yeah, it's one thing that is and I have to be patiently enduring with other Christians about this as well, is that they just expect so much so quickly and straight away, when that's not the case. Like God is patient, and he patiently endures with us. And that's one of the the fruit of the Spirit is patience, that we would have patience with our fellow brethren as well,
Yeah,
that they
Yeah.
can be going through these
want to
seasons.
be. What's that? Sorry.
Oh, just that they can be going through these seasons of where they're just not really bearing any fruit, but they'll come back and they'll bear much more fruit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And that's
totally.
going into like 1 John 2:19. They leave us to show us that they were never really of us. It's a permanent leaving. If someone says that they were
Yeah.
Christian and then they go away forever, then they were never Christian to begin with. But people do have that falling away and then coming back if ever they were actually saved to begin with.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. Man, this is great.